The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Chapter 8 Variation in Tactics. Summary. Sun Tzu identifies what should and should not be done in 5 different types of ground to lay a foundation for the 9 variables. These kinds of ground are: low-lying, in which an army should not camp; communicating, in which allies may be joined; desolate, to be moved through as quickly as possible; unclosed, requiring resourceful solutions to get out of; and death, in which the only option is to fight. The 9 variables or variation in tactics are based on an estimation of changing conditions under which action is either indicated or not indicated in any of the 5 types of ground. It is up to the commander to make the decision regarding what ground to take, when, and how. A careful assessment of possible consequences must be made ahead of time. Ground is not to be fought for if one knows it will be difficult to defend, or that he gains no advantage by obtaining it. If a certain road is short, it must be followed. If an army is isolated, it must be attacked. If a town is in a parlous condition, it must be besieged. If a position can be stormed, it must be attempted. And if consistent with military operations, the ruler's commands must be obeyed. Simply knowing these variables will not do any good. They must be put into immediate action at the required time in order to succeed. Once the sovereign has placed his confidence in his choice of a commander, that commander must retain complete autonomy and authority on the battlefield. While our campaigns against the enemy rages on, concurrently we must find ways to undermine an enemy commander's ability and willingness to sustain a prolonged fight. Entice away the enemy's best and wisest men, so that he may be left without counselors. Introduce traitors into his country, that the government policy may be rendered futile. Foment intrigue and deceit, and thus sow dissension between the ruler and his ministers. By means of every artful contrivance, cause deterioration amongst his men and waste of his treasure. Corrupt his morals by insidious gifts leading him into excess. Disturb and unsettle his mind by presenting him with lovely women. Sun Tzu recommends self-reflection on the part of the general. There are 5 dangerous faults that may affect a general. 1. A recklessness, which leads to destruction. 2. Cowardice, which leads to capture. 3. Delicacy of honor, which is sensitive to shame. 4. Hasty temper, which can be provoked by insults. 5. Over-solicitude for his men, which exposes him to worry and trouble, for in the long run the troops will suffer more from the defeat, or at best, the prolongation of the war, which will be the consequence. In conclusion, the 5 qualities ruinous to a general: 1. Recklessness; 2. Cowardly; 3. Quick-tempered; 4. Too delicate a sense of honor; and 5. A compassionate nature, may be exploited against an enemy general. Parallel the 5 kinds of ground: 1. Low-lying, in which an army should not camp. 2. Communicating, in which allies may be joined. 3. Desolate, to be moved through as quickly as possible. 4. Unclosed, requiring resourceful solutions to get out of. And 5. Death, in which the only option is to fight. An example of a general who brought ruin upon himself due to recklessness, quick temperament, and too delicate a sense of honor is Long Zhu of the Chu army during the Chu-Han contention, 206 to 202 BC. Shang Yu sent Long Zhu to lead 200,000 troops to help Tianguan. After Han Xin defeated Long Zhu in battle, Long Zhu was advised to focus on strengthening his defenses and getting Tianguan to rally support from the fallen Qi territories. However, Long Zhu arrogantly decided not to heed the advice, and insisted on attacking Han Xin to prove the superiority of his warcraft. On the night before the battle, Han Xin sent his men to dam the Wei River with sandbags. The next morning, after a skirmish with Chu forces, Han Xin feigned defeat and retreated to lure the enemy to follow him. When about a quarter of the Chu army had crossed the river, Han Xin signaled to his men to open the dam. Many Chu soldiers drowned, and Long Zhu was isolated in an unclosed ground with only a fraction of his forces, and was killed in action.